CEO Ted Price, who is here to give us a guided tour. That's right. Thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
All right, now you have had some more time to push the hardware in Resistance 2. Like, how have you know, what advances have you made, and how are they going to affect the way Resistance 2 looks?
Well, this is the first third-generation PlayStation 3 title to be out, and we've been doing a lot of work on the engine to make sure that we can really push lighting, push textures, push effects, basically make the game faster and do more.
Okay, so what locations are we going to be seeing? I mean, are we going to recognize things that we've seen from the first game?
We're going to be in a brand new environment. We're back in the United States. The Chimera have launched this massive airborne attack, and we're traveling across the country fighting them off.
All right, let's talk about what we're seeing right now. This is a very small enemy that you're fighting right now.
This is a large enemy. This is a 300-foot Leviathan that's been...
Oh, is that all?
Yeah, sorry, it's a little small. He's been tearing apart Chicago, and what we're doing right now is trying to avoid getting our heads ripped off or smushed by him.
Okay, so how do we do that?
Well, we need to be very careful about where we're running, and because he's going to be ripping these buildings apart trying to get to us. Furthermore, we got to shoot him at the right time.
Okay. It really doesn't look like you can do anything to him.
Well, actually, you can. So we're going to, in fact, we did to actually get here. He grabbed us a little bit earlier in the demo, and we had to time our shot right to hit him in a very vulnerable place. But now we're just trying to avoid getting dumped into the ocean that Chicago has really become. It's been flooded. So
with Resistance 2, is it going to have a lot of boss battles? Is it going to be a series of boss battles, or is it going to be kind of a mixed bag?
Well, it'll be a mixed bag. We have a lot of great bosses in the game, large bosses that definitely move you away from traditional run-and-gun footage. But then again, we also are relying on our kind of unique weapons and unique enemies in the game to provide a lot of cool strategic combat.
All right, well, let's talk about the weapons for a second. They had great secondary functions as well as primary functions in the first game. I think that was a lot of fun for gamers to kind of think more strategically. Once you got the firing down, you could learn more about the weapons. So what kind of new weapons do you have in Resistance 2?
Well, one of the new weapons we're showing off here at E3 is a brand new Magnum. We didn't have any pistols in Resistance, but we wanted something that would really pack a good punch. But it's not just a Magnum. When you fire the bullets into enemies or into any object, they become detonatable. It's not a word, I know.
No, it's a great word, and I think we need to enter it into the English language.
I like that. What I like doing, though, is laying out traps with a bullet. So if you have a big horde of enemies rushing towards you, you can fire 6 into the ground and then detonate them in sequence, and it's a lot of fun.
So what kind of enemies are we going to be looking at? Are they going to be the same enemies that we've seen in Resistance 1?
Well, you'll see some updated versions of enemies from Resistance 1, like the hybrids and the steelheads. But we're introducing a lot of new enemies as well, such as the Leviathan we just saw, and a lot of other ones that we haven't quite unveiled. But there'll be plenty of variety.
I mean, was it hard to get the hardware to make an enemy of that scale living in the world, or is it harder to get hundreds of enemies on the screen at once?
Well, in terms of just scale, that was one of our goals for the game. We really wanted to create enemies that were huge, environments that were expansive, and stuff that you just don't see in other games. And that was because we were able to do that because of the new technology we've been developing for PlayStation 3.
All right, let's talk a little bit about co-op, because of course that was a very popular use for the first Resistance. What kind of modes are you going to have available?
Well, the online co-op mode is a story-driven mode. It has a light story that drives you through the campaign, and during co-op you get to choose between 3 different types of players. You can be a medic, you can be a soldier, which is basically our tank, and you can be a special ops guy, which is our long-distance damage dealer. All 3 of these classes work together to support each other in huge, huge battles.
And what kind of party options are we going to have?
Well, you'll be able to form parties, bring them into the games, multiplayer online, multiplayer co-op as well, and basically stick around with your friends.
Yeah.
We're also doing a lot of work with our community features to enhance it with the kind of mainstream social networking that you'll see on regular websites.
Yeah, they're definitely converging, sort of the online social networks and the gaming social networks. What are we taking a look at right here?
What we're seeing right here is another part of Chicago. This is where you begin, and you're fighting against a horde of what we're calling Grims, one of our new enemies. These are former inhabitants of Chicago who've been turned to do something a little bit different. And as you can see, there are a lot of them.
Something a little bit different.
A lot different. Yeah, a lot different. You don't want to get narrow. But this demonstrates kind of the overall detail and the new lighting tweaks that we made to the game, and just the amount of sheer stuff that we can get on screen.
So are you going more for a run and gun feel, or are you trying to sort of mimic the feel of Resistance 2 and the pace, mimic the pacing of Resistance 1?
It varies, actually.
Okay.
There are some segments where you're facing off against a lot of enemies. And then there are other segments of the game where you have to be careful and use the correct weapon strategy to get through.
Right.
One of the great things about the enemies and having Chimera versus humans is that we can do anything we want with Chimera. We can really mix it up a lot to surprise players and challenge them to think a little bit harder about which weapons to use.
Was there anything you weren't particularly happy with in Resistance that you were able to address in Resistance 2? You're like, no, it was perfect.
No, I'm kidding. We listened to the fans. A lot of people made some fantastic comments about what they'd like to see in the next game, and we're addressing them in the game.
Great, well, we can't wait to see it. And when are we going to see it on store shelves?
This fall.
Okay, this fall. Now, thank you so much for joining us and showing us Resistance 2. It was a real treat for us. Let's send it back over to Kevin.